Hi, today I'm here to help you figure out how to assemble the Donner DDP 100 digital piano. I see that some people have a little trouble on the internet with trying to lift up the top unit to put onto the bass, and that's really the hard way to do it. So why don't we together look at the different parts that are involved and figure out an easy way to put this together. Let's begin by looking at each of the pieces as they've come out of the box. In this particular grouping, you can see all of the different parts that come with the piano. There are two of the main legs, one for the left-hand side and one for the right-hand side. There are also two support columns that help the legs to hold up the top or the piano keyboard, one side and the other side. There is a bottom portion that has the pedals in it, and the white that you see here is the protective covers on the pedals. I'm leaving those on through the assembly. There is an instruction manual that comes with the piano. There is also, of course, the main top unit that is very heavy. It's probably around 80 pounds or more. And so I'm going to show you an easy way to assemble this so that you don't have to have two people to do it. And then finally, as a major component, there is the backboard. It's fairly thin, but it lends a lot of strength to the assembly when it's finally put into place. And last are some parts that are used to assemble the entire unit. These are some spare wood dowels and some spare screws. These are the 16 screws that are used to assemble the entire unit. Here is the power supply for the piano. And finally, a reference card in case you get into trouble with your assembly, or maybe you receive something damaged, then you can always contact Donner directly. The first thing to do is to assemble the side panels to the bottom. You can do this with one screw in each side and then two screws in each side, and put the screws in not completely but enough to hold the assembly together. You can see the first screw here. Now you can see the second screw has been applied. And as I said before, the screws are somewhat loose to allow for imperfections in the manufacturing process. We'll tighten them completely later. Now we have all four screws loosely assembled so that the side panels are now attached to the bottom. Next is the back. Before we put the screws into the back, you may want to punch through the kind of plasticky paint that's used on the wood, as shown here with the screwdriver, to make the application of the screws much easier in each of the points on the panel. You can do the same for other screw holes that are obscured by the paint. When assembling the back, I would suggest that you use the two top screws first so that you can easily put the panel into the recess of the uprights. Once you have the screws applied, and the panel will easily slip into the uprights with the top two screws, and you can follow with the other screws around the periphery as shown here. Once you have all of the screws in the bottom, as shown here, and in the back, as shown here, then you can proceed to tighten them first to a point where the friction of the joint is felt, and then maybe a quarter turn or more past that to make them tight. In my case, I found that the screws on the back needed about 1/2 turn past the point of contact, no more than 3/4 of a turn to be fully tight, and the screws in the bottom needed about 1/4 turn past the point of contact to be fully tight. You should be careful not to over tighten the screws or you will pull out the metal inserts that have been put into the wood to hold them there. At this point, the upright pillars for supporting the top can be placed into the base. You should probably make sure that the holes are clear of debris and paint, and then you can place the pegs from the upright into the holes, and using some force or perhaps a tap from the hammer on top between the pegs can get the upright installed. Before putting in the uprights, you may wish to put some glue into the holes where the pegs will go to secure them even further. But once the uprights are installed, the entire base then will be assembled as shown here and is now ready to attach to the top. Before attaching the top to the base, I did want to point out a couple of things that some people have trouble with. First of all, note that under the left-hand side of the top are 2 audio jacks. These are for headphones, and they will shut off the speakers that you see here on the base so that you can practice with complete silence. Some people have tried to plug headphones in the audio output on the back of the keyboard, and that will not silence the speakers. Also, there is a jack here to accept the pedal assembly connector, which we will connect towards the end. Also, please note that I have left the tape on the top of the keyboard cover to prevent it from opening before we get everything assembled. That will make it much easier to assemble without worrying about the top falling open. Now that we have the base assembled and we have the top ready to place on to the base, there's 2 different ways that we can put them together. One I'll call the hard way, and one I'll call the easy way. The hard way is what several people have mentioned in Amazon reviews, where they take the top portion and they lift it up and place it on top of the base and then apply the screws and attempt to line up these posts with the holes on the bottom of the base. That's a very difficult way to do things, and you definitely would want 2 people to do this because this top portion weighs around 80 pounds. It's very ungainly and it's difficult to handle. If you have to do it that way, then use 2 people. I'd rather do it the easy way. So now that we have the base assembled and the top is ready to accept the base, I'm going to lay the base down on its back to line it up with the top, and I'm going to put some glue into the peg holes here on one end and also on the other end of the keyboard. After you have joined the support posts to the top, perhaps using a solid palm hit here or a hammer tap with a cloth to protect the finish, and you've wiped off any excess glue, then you'll be ready to install the screws, the 4 screws that will finish the assembly. We'll do that next. Now that you have tightened all of the screws on the top that connects it to the base, and you've glued the supports
you may want to check the tightness of the base screws to see if they've undone themselves slightly and retighten them. The same for the other side. And finally, as a helpful hint, you can see here that I've used a book to raise the lower part of the base to make things come out more correctly in line the way that they should. I've done the same on the other side with another book about 1/2 inch or 12 millimeters thick.
So now the piano is fully assembled, and you can lift it from the back and tilt about this point right here to raise the piano into a vertical position. You can do this with one person, but certainly you can use two if you prefer to have a little bit more care with the raising onto the bass. This will allow the weight of the keyboard to act as a natural clamp and press down on these columns that we've glued into the base of the keyboard. Now I'm going to show you that it is actually quite easy to raise the piano from a horizontal position to a vertical position with just one person. As you'll see right now, I have the piano elevated on a pad to make it easier for me to raise, but you can do this on carpet as well, as long as you can get your fingers underneath the top unit. You simply raise the piano up to vertical height and set it gently in place. And you can see now that the piano is vertical. If you raise the piano in this way, it is much easier than trying to lift the top on top of a vertical bass. So again, to summarize, we have laid the bass down horizontally, we have placed the top on its back, and we join the two together. I assembled this on a rubber pad that is about 1/2 inch thick, and if you lay the top down so that there is some overhang, it's very easy to get your fingers under and lift the piano up into the vertical position. Another good way to do it is on carpet. Don't attempt to do this on a smooth floor, because you might run into problems with the whole instrument slipping away from you and banging on the floor. One last thing I wanted to go over is the connections in the back of the piano, because some people seem to have misunderstood how you connect. The DC jack is for the power adapter that you plug into the wall. The audio input and output ports allow you to, using the input port, mix in sound with your playing, and the output port allows you to take the piano sound and connect it into a large amplifier or PA system. However, this output will not quiet the speakers of the piano. It will still be playing as normal. If you want to completely cut the sound of the piano, you have to plug into the underside of the keyboard and use the two headphone jacks for that kind of playing. Also, there is a sustain input pedal if you want to use a different one than what is on the base of the piano already. There is a USB MIDI jack so that you can use this not only as a piano but as a keyboard to trigger all kinds of different instrument sounds. Finally, there's an MP3 USB port that you can use to pipe in MP3 music and play along with that music. So after raising the piano, what's left to do? Just a couple of things. One is to make sure that you have the power outlet adapter plugged into the wall and to the piano keyboard. The other is that you have plugged in the foot pedal plug so that you have sustain. And after that, it's time to take the tape off the keyboard cover and raise the cover, turn on the unit with the power switch and adjust the volume, and begin to play. So there you have it. That is the Donner DDP 100 digital piano. I really like the way it sounds. I think comparing it to regular mechanical pianos, spinets, and even some baby grands, it sounds just great. I think you'd have to spend several $1,000s to get a piano that sounds better than this one does. It feels just like a regular piano with the weighted keys, and I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to try it out. I think you will be too. Bye for now.